Alex here with a video on legal nuts and bolts. I'm going to cover the computation of time, and this is with respect to deadlines. In Nevada, actually this is probably true for all 50 states. In Nevada, the computation of when something is due is not straightforward. You have to check the rules and consider 2 or 3 different things when you're going to calculate when something is due, whether it's something that's due from you or something that's due from your opponent. So I'm going to give specific examples, but please check your own court rules, your own statutes, check everything for yourself in your own state, because this is not something that is consistent in all 50 states. Maybe, I'm not sure if Nevada takes a whole bunch of this from the federal rules of civil procedure, because if Nevada does, then it's likely that it's something that a lot of the other states do too, and so it might be like almost the same thing for you, but just don't assume that. Actually go and check. So, side note, I'm going to be talking about papers and pleadings. This video I'm not going to actually go into detail as to how they work, but I will do videos in the future explaining exactly what a complaint is and what it does, exactly what a petition is, exactly what a motion is. I know people will benefit from those videos, especially motion practice videos. In high conflict child custody, you're going to be filing or answering or opposing a lot of motions, because that's the whole nature of high conflict. Things are going back to court all the time. But in this video, I just wanted to cover the computation of time. It actually is an issue that a lot of people give me questions on. It's so straightforward though, so I figured it's a good idea to probably cover it. So first of all, some things when they're filed, they trigger a deadline. For example, I told you I'd give you examples, so going forward, assume these examples are from Nevada. For example, when you file your petition to establish custody and visitation, and this is a legal nuts and bolts video, so I'm just going to use my custody examples for now because it's easy, but remember this applies to all types of cases. When you file your petition to establish custody and visitation, it triggers a deadline, actually when you serve it. When you serve it on your opponent, they have 20 days to file an answer. When you file a motion, your opponent has 10 days to file an opposition. So different paper, different deadline. When they file an opposition, you have 5 days to file a reply. So you can see how this can get a little bit hairy for somebody who's never done any kind of formal court, any kind of formal lawsuit before. There's different types of papers and pleadings, and each type has a different deadline. Some papers and pleadings don't require a response at all. So for example, after you file your reply, then that's it. There's no deadline after that. The matter's been briefed. Let's say somebody files like a notice of change of address. There's no deadline to respond to that. Sometimes the deadline is like you have to read between the lines. So for example, in Nevada, if somebody files a motion for costs, or a memorandum of costs, sorry, like after you've, let's say you've lost your court case and your opponent files a memorandum of costs. Well, you don't have to file anything after that, but if you don't, that gets put straight into your judgment. If you want to challenge that, then you have to file a motion to retax those costs, and I think that's within 2 days. So you've heard already 3 different types of deadlines: a 20-day deadline, a 2-day deadline, a 10-day deadline. Oh, you've heard 4, a 5-day deadline. You have to check your rules whenever something is filed. If you're a non-lawyer, you have no idea as to how this thing is going, how these things work. You have to check and find, my opponent just filed this. Do I have to do something? Because it's not going to say it in their pleading. Now, there's some exceptions. I have to say that in other states or in other judicial districts, there may be exceptions. In Nevada, there is an exception for the 8th Judicial District, which is Clark County, which encompasses Las Vegas and Henderson. In the 8th Judicial District, when somebody files a motion, they have to put in their very specific language saying when a response is due. But that's only 8th Judicial. If you're in 2nd Judicial District, which is Reno, Washoe County, so Reno, Sparks, that area, they do not have to put that in there. And you may not know that you have to file anything. If you don't look and check the rules, you may not know that, and there are consequences for not responding to these things. If you don't respond to a complaint or a petition, somebody can ask the court to render a decision by default against you. If somebody files a motion and you don't file an opposition, there's court rules in place that allow the court to construe their motion as meritorious, and that since you didn't oppose it, that you are consenting to the court granting it. So a lot of times, some of the worst injustices happen this way. Somebody will get an award of attorney's fees imposed on them because they didn't oppose the motion for attorney's fees. And it's like they could have won if they would have, but they didn't oppose it. And some people, it's because they think they can't win. Other people, it's because they don't even know they have a right to oppose it. A lot of people think that there will be a court date. And in Washoe County, that's not true. If somebody files, if somebody sues you in small claims, it triggers a court date. And so that might actually trick people. They might think, yeah, last time I got sued in small claims, there was a court date. Well, it's not the same in a formal lawsuit. If somebody files a civil action in the justice courts, if they file a complaint and serve you with a complaint, there's no court date on that thing. And if you don't file an answer, then they just win by default. Next thing you know, you have a judgment against you. You haven't even seen the judge. So check your court rules, your statutes. If you have to, you can call the courthouse and check websites. But I've cautioned people about this in the past. Sometimes the information that you get from those sources is not accurate. I think the video that I did was no legal advice. It's titled No Legal Advice. Go into my videos and look at it. And I've got examples in there where explanations as to why you can't get legal advice and examples as to when it can actually be bad to get legal advice because it's wrong. And anyway, the types of people that can't give it to you, like the clerks and the judges. Anyway, I covered one aspect of this this video, which is determine if there's a deadline when somebody files something. The second aspect is, even though I've given you all those various different deadlines, the number of days that I gave you is not actually the number of days that a response is going to be due. And this is going to totally be mind-bending to some people. So I've given you 4 or 5 different deadlines. So like for a complaint, it's 20 days. A motion, it's 10. An opposition, it's 5. Does that mean you wait actual 20 days, 10 days, 5 days? No, it doesn't. There's in Nevada, I was going to give you some specifics. There's a court rule. It's called NRCP 5, which is, actually, no, it's NRCP 6, which covers how you compute time. And one of the things in Nevada, and this is discussed by NRCP 6 and JCRCP 6, which just is, it mirrors it, but it's for the justice courts. The Nevada Rules of Civil Procedure, NRCP, are for the Nevada District Courts. The Justice Court Rules of Civil Procedure, the JCRCP, are for the justice courts. NRCP 6 and JCRCP 6 are clones. They're duplicates. It's the same. The language is the same. It's just one applies to the district courts of Nevada and one applies to the justice courts of Nevada. Anyway, Rule 6 explains how you compute time. When something is due in 10 days or less, you only count judicial days. When something is due in 11 days or more, then you count calendar days. So even though the complaint is due in 20 days and the opposition is due in 10 days, it's not that straightforward because the complaint that you have to answer is calendar days, 20 calendar days. The motion that you've been hit with that you have to oppose is 10 judicial days. So you skip weekends on that when you compute that. And you skip holidays, court holidays. So like if it's like a Thanksgiving, I believe the Thursday and the Friday of Thanksgiving are judicial holidays. So you would skip the Thursday and the Friday, and then the Saturday and the Sunday because those are weekends. So not only that, but if the day that it's due lands on an off day, it's actually considered to be due on the following judicial day. Now it's going to get a little more confusing because that actually applies to the calendar days too. So with calendar days, you have to wait 20 calendar days, or you have to file an answer to a complaint within 20 calendar days. That 20th day lands on a Sunday, then it's actually due on Monday. Even though you're counting calendar days because it landed on an off day, it's actually due on the calendar day. The motion, of course, as I mentioned, it's 10 days, but you're going to skip weekends, you're going to skip judicial holidays. And if that sucker lands on a Sunday, then that's also due on the Monday. I'm not done yet. If you look into NRCP 6, there's a subsection. It's subsection E. NRCP 6E and JCRCP 6E has a little provision in there that says if something is not served personally, then you add 3 calendar days on top of its due date. So if a complaint is due in 20, if somebody serves you with a complaint, and I'm sorry, I keep saying the word filed, and that's because I assume that the pleading or paper has been served on the same day it was filed. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes something will be filed and then served like weeks later or a day later. If I've referenced a filing date, just assume I'm talking about served, when you were actually served with the document. So if you were, let's say you got, somebody filed a motion against you and served it to you, but they served it to you by mail, not personally, then you get an extra 3 calendar days on top of that due date. And now it's getting hairy, because those first 10 days are considered judicial days, but those extra 3 days are considered calendar days. So this is actually going to be confusing for a lot of people, because I'm giving you all these different things, but I don't mind that you're confused, because what I want to get through to people is you need to look into the details and the specifics, because as you can see, it can vary widely. Whether something is due or not is a question. How many days until something is due is a question. What days do you count as days is a question. If something was mailed, do you add more days onto it is another question. And so hopefully people aren't going and listening to this video going, okay, he's telling me the exact amount of time, now I can do that. No, I'm trying to get it through your head that this is complicated and you have to look it up. There's most likely a self-help center in your state that will help you out with how to compute time in your jurisdiction. If you happen to be in Nevada and you need some help, go ahead and send me an email and I'll help you with the deadline. Don't just go by the numbers I've thrown in this video. They are accurate, but I mean, there's a lot of things to look into, and I don't want you to make a mistake, because part of the purposefulness of what I'm doing is to show people just how thorny it can be, that it's not so straightforward as it might seem. I believe that's everything that I wanted to cover under computation of time. I did mention that it's when something is served, not when it's filed. So keep that in mind. It goes by when you were served. If you've been personally served, then it's obviously from the day you were served. If you've been served by mail, read the certificate of service if it's included, or check the postmark on the envelope, because you don't actually count the if something's mailed to you, you don't count the starting from when it actually got to your house. You have to actually count from the day that they put it in the mailbox, which is where that whole extra 3 days comes in. It's supposed to sort of compensate for the fact that it takes a little bit of time to get to you. I've seen some people go, well, it was mailed to me on the 10th, but it didn't get to my house till the 12th, and then they start counting from the 12th, and they also add those 3 days. That's not how it works. If it was mailed to you on the 10th, you start counting from the 10th, and then you add those 3 extra days, and that should sort of balance out the delay in the mail. That's kind of the whole thought process behind why they add three days for NRCP and JCRCP 6E. I think, if I remember correctly, there are even exceptions within Nevada that I'm not sure if you get an extra 3 days in Clark County if it was served on you electronically. These are things that I don't know about, but all this does is really add to why it's so important for you to look into this. So, I mean, hopefully it's telling as to how complicated it is to represent yourself in court. The fact that even figuring out how to compute time involves so much thought is like, I don't know, hopefully that just adds to how important it is for you to pay attention to what's going on and not just wing it. Don't just wing it. The last thing I wanted to mention was I did a video on extensions and shortening time and all that. If you need extra time to like answer a complaint, or if you need like an extension on a motion, check out that video. If I remember correctly, it was called Continuances, Shortening Time, and Extensions, or Enlarging, something like that. Look for that in my on my channel, and you can figure out how to get some extra time if you need it. So with that, I'll end this video, and again, if you have any specific questions and you're from Nevada, you can feel free to ask me how to compute time on whatever it is that you have that's due. I do want to say one thing that's nice is after you've been doing this for like a couple of years, a year or two, it kind of becomes second nature. So it's not going to be like hard every single time you have to compute time. But for sure, the first few things that you're filing, you're going to be like lost as to what's going on and why are these. A lot of people are just scared, and so they just answer something really quick. It's like, this is due in 10 days, but I don't know how computation works, so I'm just going to file this in 5 just to be extra safe. Some people do that. That's smart too, but towards after you're litigating for a long time, sometimes you really need that last day. It's like your life is getting crazy and you got things to do, you're on a vacation, you're working all the time, and sometimes you actually need to know the exact day it's due because you actually need all that time. So again, if you have any questions, send me an email, I'll post something in the comments. With that, I'll see you guys next time.